This is Diana Shares the News, a podcast brought to you by the DigiZone Network. This episode is titled The Government X-Files, Disclosure or Deception. The U.S. Department of War recently released thousands of declassified UFO files, which the public can view on the website the government provided for this. So far, most of the files I glanced at seemed old and about previously reported incidents that many ufologists are familiar with. The government so far does not offer any conclusions about the reports, indicating whether these are real or not real, or describing exactly what the government concluded the subjects of these sightings were or are. Now, some experts believe that more dramatic disclosures may be on the way. At this stage, I tend to agree with ufology experts that aspects of the UFO phenomenon that we really want to know about are likely to be in the hands of private corporations that were awarded contracts years ago for close-up examination of materials recovered and reverse engineering of the technologies discovered. In other words, we will not know about the parts that were or are being weaponized. The hidden files probably reveal how abductions took place. That's an important technology. Can we expect then something akin to the 1951 movie, The Day the Earth Stood Still? Or how about the 1954 flick, War of the Worlds? Perhaps. Will it be Hollywood staged? Perhaps. I want to take a moment out to mention the MUFON, Mutual UFO Network organization in this region that plans to hold its monthly meeting this weekend in Alamogordo, New Mexico. And no doubt the government files recently released will be a topic of discussion at that meeting. Maria Tellier, director of New Mexico MUFON, said in an email after she graciously agreed to answer his questions, "I am still reviewing the data, but these are my observations so far," Maria Tellier said. "I was very surprised that these documents and images were released. I noticed that the earlier materials came from the FBI, and J. Edgar Hoover himself addressed many of the memos and letters from citizens reporting unidentified objects and materials. Several of those letters mentioned enclosed photographs, but I did not see those images included in the files." Tellier also said the FBI files and reports appear to stop around 1968. They appear to stop around 1968. I did not find any Project Blue Book, that's a U.S. Air Force files, and while there are some references from the Air Force, they do not compare in detail to the FBI documentation and investigative reports. The video footage is of poor quality, but it still demonstrates the extreme speed and maneuverability of these objects. Overall, I am very pleased that something has finally been released, and I hope more information continues to come out. Now, the public is invited to the MUFON meeting at 11 a.m. May 16, Otero Art Space, 12th and Indiana Streets, Alamogordo, New Mexico. It's free, and no doubt you will have one of the most amazing and interesting meetings you have ever met for in your life, along with maybe a cup of coffee. Bye. As everyone knows, we have been continually fed a big tease. We've been teased along. And you may have heard by now about the recent private meetings with religious ministers and influencers to encourage them to prepare their congregations about the upcoming UFO disclosures. Some of these ministers have been interviewed in recent podcasts, such as by L.A. Marzulli and Perry Stone. The ministers and influencers, we were told, were shown documents and photographs and videos in hours-long meetings. Government officials were not involved in these presentations, but they were attributed to the presentations to people with direct knowledge of the information that the government has. This sort of reminds me of the late Pope Francis and his comments in 2014 that the Catholic Church should be prepared to, quote, baptize any extraterrestrials that request the sacrament. And we know that congressional hearings into the whole UFO maze also continue. The most important thing I can say about all of this is for people to be very careful with the information they will see and hear. Be very careful what you fall for. The possibility for massive government manipulation in this area exists. Real events experienced by people over decades, including reported abductions, can be explained in deceptive manners. There are supernatural elements, I believe, involved in some of these events, and this adds to the complexity of the issues. For example, how do you analyze the supernatural with natural means? Links to some of these references are provided in the video description below. And again, I encourage you to consult experts, people who know what they're talking about, people who have been following and are in the middle of these phenomenon and can tell when something is true and isn't true. And stay tuned for more. This won't be the last episode on this. This is a big topic. And I'm glad it's time that it's come out in the open. It's time to talk about it without being made fun of or treated as crazy or weird. All right. We'll be in touch. Thank you for tuning in to the DigiZone Network. Diana Shares Podcast. This is Diana Washington Valdez.